Rìmaru was a Romanian serial killer dubbed or the Blonde's Killer. He terrorized Bucharest between 1970 and 1971. Authorities had made over 2,500 arrests before he was apprehended. Rìmaru killed 4 women and attacked more than 10 others. The women were attacked with an axe, bitten on the breasts and thighs and RPD after they were already dead. Rìmaru's parents married in Caracal and had 3 sons, Ian being their eldest child. His father and his mother argued almost daily. The couple eventually separated and his father moved to Bucharest, taking a job as a night tram driver. After his death years later, Floria, his father, was discovered to have been a serial killer. Rìmaru was born in Carabia. His early life was a troubled one. He repeated the 9th grade, provoked a public scandal in his hometown when he was found to be having a sexual relationship with the minor daughter of his teacher, and, at age 18, was convicted of aggravated theft. Nevertheless, during high school, he always received a perfect grade in conduct. He entered the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine in 1966 with a grade of 5.33. He repeated his second year there. At the time of his arrest, Rìmaru was in the course of repeating his 3rd year. Although he entered a university, one of his professors described him as shy and semi-literate, with a very poor vocabulary and an extremely narrow range of interests. His roommates reported that he behaved strangely, so they avoided him. When he became enraged, he would harm himself. He was found to have over 20 cuts on his arms and legs. From adolescence, Rìmaru had an uncontrollable libido. For instance, a university classmate reported that one night, at the dormitory, Rìmaru did not sleep at all, but instead prowled outside a room where he knew a girl had come to visit a classmate. Doctors diagnosed him with esophageal spasm, reactive nervous syndrome, and mental problems in 1967. Bucharest was shaken by a series of crimes committed in the latter half of 1970 and the first months of 1971. An unknown individual would use a hammer, a small axe, an iron bar or a knife to attack restaurant waitresses who were alone and returning from work. He struck after midnight during unusual weather conditions such as snowstorms, driving rain, high winds, freezing cold or fog. Many women would not go outside after 9 p.m. except in large groups or with men. Their terror was heightened by the police's reluctance to release details, leading to wildly exaggerated rumors. After a few crimes, the police realized that they were dealing with a serial killer. A year-long investigation, with the help of victims who had survived, led to Rìmaru's arrest on the 27th of May 1971. However, the clue which led directly to Rìmaru's arrest was a medical diagnosis sheet. On the 4th of March 1971, a group of 6 doctors found that he had suspected periodic epilepsy. The doctor's note was found beneath the body of Mihaela Ursu, whom he murdered in especially brutal fashion 2 months later. Between her fingers she had strands of his hair that were used to identify him. Because the note was wet and bloody, only the letterhead from the Bucharest Students' Hospital was visible. At this point the criminal began acting more randomly, not attacking waitresses exclusively and even going after 2 women who were together. On the 15th of May, specialists determined that the note had been produced in Octavian Enist's office in March 1971. He had seen 83 students that month, of whom 15, including Rìmaru, had not deposited their diagnoses with university officials. The police closely monitored each suspect and 3 officers went to his dormitory on the 27th of May. He was not home, but while they searched his room he came back at 1 p.m. In his sack he had an axe and a knife. Tests on the hair and bite marks he left and the testimony of witnesses left no reasonable doubt as to his guilt. The 16 gravest offences of which Rìmaru was convicted are, chronologically: 8/9 of April 1970, Elena Oprea, premeditated murder not sexual abused because a neighbor scared him away. 1/2 of June 1970, Florica Marcu, knocked unconscious in front of her house, carried to Sfânta Vinery Cemetery, pushed hard off the fence there, RPD, stabbed and had her blood sucked while walking home with him, saved by a truck driver. 19/20 of July 1970, OCL confectious store, theft of public property. The 24th of July 1970, Margareta Hangeniu, aggravated theft. 22/the 23rd of November 1970, Olga Baritaru, aggravated attempted murder, sexual abuse and aggravated theft. 15/the 16th of February 1971, Georgita Schiu, aggravated attempted murder and aggravated theft. 17/the 18th of February 1971, Elisabetta Floria, aggravated attempted murder. 4/the 5th of March 1971, Fanica Elie, aggravated premeditated murder, sexual abuse and aggravated theft. 8/the 9th of April 1971, Georgita Popper, aggravated murder, sexual abuse and aggravated theft. 48 stab wounds to the head, chest, groin and legs, 5 blows to the head, ribs crushed by stomping, genitalia bitten out. 1/the 2nd of May 1971, Stana Saracen, attempted sexual abuse. 4/the 5th of May 1971, Mihaila Ursu, aggravated murder, sexual abuse. He was interrupted in the act and left unsatisfied, leading him to seek a new victim. 4/the 5th of May 1971, Maria Iordache, aggravated attempted murder. Attacked 2 hours after Ursu escaped when he dropped the metal bar with which he was beating her while she was running. 6/the 7th of May 1971, Viorica Tatu, aggravated attempted murder. 6/the 7th of May 1971, Elena Bulusi, aggravated attempted murder. May 1971, Juliana Funzinch, aggravated theft of public property and aggravated theft of private property. After the murder of Popper, a waitress, the authorities went on high alert, launching Operation Vulture, named after the street where she had been murdered. 6,000 men from various law enforcement agencies patrolled the streets of Bucharest each night, as well as 100 cars and 40 motorcycles. Medical personnel, night bus and tram operators, hotel and bar employees, all were mobilized, not to mention great numbers of Securitate, police and Interior Ministry staff. 2,565 arrests were made and over 8,000 individuals were asked for identification, but Rîmaru would commit one more murder and attempt to commit several more before being arrested. Authorities rated Rîmaru's modus operandi as ferocious and cruel, based on his propensity for cutting off clothes, biting off flesh, dragging his victims, and hacking away at them with his weapons, also abusing them while they were unconscious. Rîmaru was judged to be aggressive, impulsive and sadistic. He showed signs of vampirism. For instance, he poked several holes into the flesh of Florica Marcu, who later related how he sucked blood out of them. Cannibalism was also present. He would bite women's vaginas, pubic areas and breasts, and the missing pieces of flesh were no longer found at the crime scenes. Additionally, he had necrophiliac tendencies, continuing his sexual abuse after his victims had died and also beating and stabbing their corpses. After his arrest, Rîmaru remained completely silent, staring expressionlessly into space. The investigators went into an office to decide on a plan. They introduced a police officer who pretended to be a thief into his cell and got him to talk. After 2 months of interrogations, Rîmaru admitted to 23 very serious crimes. In fact, he had been arrested for only 3 murders, the rest he or his father confessed to. On one hand, he tried to convince the authorities that he was not responsible on the grounds of insanity, and that he did not realize the women would die. On the other hand, he insisted he was guilty, asking to be taken to the scenes of his crimes. During police lineups, victims brought in to identify him would tremble when their eyes met his, despite there being no danger to them now. Allegedly, for the public at large, Rîmaru's name itself inspired a vague dread. Rima/Rama means earthworm in Romanian. The authorities believed that suggestive remarks from his father, who knew all about his son's crimes, had led him to commit violence. During the investigation, his father was arrested 3 times but released because close relatives could not be forced to testify against other family members. After Ian's last crime, when he robbed a cashier, his mother visited him and found the money under his pillow. His father made him go to the crime scene and showed him what he had done. He then took the money and placed it in his Caracal home, intending to use it to buy a new house. His father was first brought into the police station during one of Ian's silent phases. The son merely gave his father an ugly look, prompting the latter to say, "How should I know what you did?" How? But he had reason to suspect it, as he had been washing his son's bloody clothes after the attacks. After Ian robbed the cashier, Floria confiscated the axe and knife, and it was with these that he was secretly returning when he was arrested. Rîmaru, whose trial drew significant public attention, thought he had convinced investigators of his insanity defense. He was apparently shocked when he read the report stating that his judgment was not impaired by mental illness, that he did not suffer from hallucinations, delirium, or similar conditions. He immediately changed his plea, recanting his previous confessions in their entirety. Thenceforth, he refused to answer even his lawyer's questions. Eventually, Rîmaru was sentenced to death, with the courtroom erupting in applause when the penalty was pronounced. He appealed, but the Supreme Tribunal upheld the sentence. On the 23rd of October 1971, Rîmaru was taken to Jilava prison in a van. He had to be dragged to the place of execution from the moment he left the van. Until he was dead, he was in a rage and vigorously tried to escape. The 3 officers charged with shooting him tied him to a post in the prison yard. Asked, in accordance with the law, if he had any last wishes, he said no. The men noticed him become more agitated, trying to bite off his clothes and twisting around the post. He yelled, "Call my father, so he can see what's happening to me. Make him come. He's the only guilty one. And I want to live." Because of his constant movement, it was difficult to aim accurately, and in the end, his backside was riddled with bullets. He was buried in the town cemetery, his grave remains unmarked.